greet our friends everywhere with Chapter 23 of To Ask No Man, the story of George Mueller's incredible adventure with God. This is another in the series Stories of Great Christians, brought to you by the Moody Bible Institute of Chicago.
Less than 18 months after George Mueller had built his huge brick shelter for 300 homeless orphans atop Ashley Downs in Bristol, he walked into my study one night and gave me a piece of news that flabbergasted me. He declared he had made up his mind to build a second home, larger even than the first. Altogether, he was making plans to house, feed, and educate 1,000 persons. I tried to make him see what a foolhardy thing he was about to plunge into. Reminded him of the struggle for money on Wilson Street. Asked him where he'd get the funds to multiply his number of orphans 10 times. When he said that God would provide, I was blunt. Doesn't this just about get to the point of tempting God, I said? Aren't you guilty of downright spiritual cockiness? And then I reasoned with him. George, old man, I said, we all have limits of physical strength. We have to stop somewhere. But he wouldn't listen. He'd made up his mind to build another orphanage as a monument to answered prayer. For 4 years, he added to his building fund. Finally, in 1855, he was ready to talk about property. And that's where he ran into his first trouble. When he pointed out the lot he wanted, the land agent informed him that the owner had died, putting the land in trust for 100 years.
This is the truth?
That's right, Mr. Mueller. The property you want can't be sold or even leased for 100 years.
100 years?
1955.
We'll be here then. Maybe not even the city of Bristol.
I'm sorry. A will is a will, and... Mr. Mueller! Sir! Where are you going, Mr. Mueller? In all this mud. Sir, wait a minute. Mr. Mueller, there is no need for you to take this out on Archibald and Rumson Limited.
Come see here. Follow me.
I beg your pardon?
Come see here. From the front of my orphanage, we walk to the back.
In all this mud?
10, 15, 25...
Mr. Mueller, what are you doing?
50, 60...
Shoes. My new leather soles. Insane.
190, 200. There. We pace off about 200 yards, 9.
I didn't count.
If 200 yards on this side of the orphanage, then 200 yards there is on the other side of the orphanage.
And?
And 200 yards is big enough frontage, Mr. Archibald.
Now you want to build up here, right next to your own building?
So we don't have trouble with Archibald and Rumson Limited or any land at all. I own it already.
You can't build, Mr. Mueller. You simply can't.
Why not? 200 yards.
It's enough for just about half the structure you want to build.
Just so.
What?
We will build my orphanage in half.
What are you talking about?
Half on this side of what we already have, and the other half over there.
It's ridiculous.
Fine. 2 small buildings instead of 1 big. That's the only difference. In one I put 300 orphans, in the other 400.
You won't buy any land at all?
2 orphanages instead of 1. See, Mr. Archibald? Neither Archibald nor Rumson, nor any dead man will stop George Mueller from adopting his 1,000 children. You're an architect. I have hired you to tell me the truth. Now say, will it fit right in there beside the other?
Well, she'll fit all right. Like a fat man in a carriage, maybe. Just slide in and no room to spare. But she'll fit all right. You can count on that.
Praise God. You drop the plans. We'll break ground in August. December already, Mary. 5 months' work done.
It's taking shape, George. I walked up that way this morning. By the way, here's your mail.
Dankeschön. Ah, Mary. Remember a contract for window glass?
The price was too high. I didn't want to sign.
Well, guess I waited too long.
Oh, George.
Too long for the contractor. Mary, this letter gives me all the glass I need for 300 windows, unsolicited and free. So much to write in my journal. So little time. February 19, 1856. Now at last the Lord has pleased to give today 3,000 pounds. It is left to my disposal for the work of the Lord. I took for the building fund 1,700. March 18, 1856. Received 4,000 pounds, which was left at my disposal as the work of the Lord might require. For the building fund, I took 3,000 pounds. January 1857. Received 500 pounds, the disposal of which was left to me. Mary, the gas burners are installed and they work. I just tested them.
Then it is almost finished, and it's only May.
Almost, but don't stop praying. We need more money.
1,000 pounds less than you needed at morning prayer.
What's that?
This came today, George.
What's this?
1,000 pounds. Maybe you can use it to help pay for the gas burners.
35,335 pounds donated.
And only 35,000 spent.
That's 335 pounds more than we prayed for.
And the building's all done.
God did it again. House number 2 is done. Now we begin to ask him for house number 3. Now then, I want the facts from your architect about my 3rd house. The truth and no hedging about.
Mr. Mueller, our original agreement with you was to draw up plans for a 3rd house to house 400 orphans.
I know that. Please answer my question.
But, sir,
would it cost more to build something to house 450 children? That's just 50 more.
But, sir, originally
would it cost much more? Would it?
Well, no, sir. It doesn't cost. It's just that we'd planned it.
All right. That's what I want to know. House number 3 is the biggest yet. We build it for 450 orphans.
And so in 1862 it was done. 3 immense brick buildings towered above Bristol on the summit of Ashley Downs. They were handsome, substantial buildings, 3 stories high, with many wide windows. And in them lived more than 1,000 boys and girls, all depending on George Mueller for 3 meals a day and their education. The orphanage staff increased too. By 62, George's right-hand man was Jim Wright, the serious-minded young chap he had admired for years. Jim was about 36 now, quite settled down with a wife and family. George took to confiding in him.
But you just received 5,000 pounds, sir. I don't see how you can be so calm.
Young Jim, you will see when you are around long enough. It is a big faith in God that makes me calmness.
But 5,000 pounds? Well, that's
the biggest single gift God gives me yet.
Yes, but not only that. It's about half of what you need to get started.
Just half. I told God I wanted 10,000 to begin.
It really begins to look as if God wants you to go ahead with it. Well, I mean...
There was doubt in your mind?
Well, not really, Mr. Mueller. What I mean is...
Oh?
Well, it is a pretty big undertaking, sir. Building 2 more orphanages. Well...
So all the time you have wondered, will the money really come in?
Well, sir, doubling the number of children here, being responsible for 2,000 people, well, it makes a chap thoughtful.
Of course it does, Jim. But I don't build for the sake of building. Jim, I have to build.
Yes, sir.
When I started with my first orphans' home on Wilson Street, way back in the 1830s, I was just about the first in the country. Maybe 3 others, no more. Did you know, Jim?
So I've heard, sir.
Radical, they called me. But it worked out. Today people know the almshouse way. That was the wrong way. All over, they build orphanages. But still, there's not enough.
Not even here in Bristol there aren't.
Not even here in Bristol. One day, you sit at this desk, and you know. Every day, 2 or 3 applications we turn away. Jim, it twists my heart.
And it's the boys you're especially interested in.
Yeah, they're the ones, Jim. Between 14 and 18 years. Those are the years when they can go this way or that way right down to the devil.
But if we can get them out of the slums...
Teach them a trade.
Show them Jesus Christ...
Yeah, this is it.
Mr. Mueller, I do believe like you. You've got to keep on building.
Jim, I need your understanding and your prayers. When I know people pray, you and your wife and Mary and my Lydia...
And friends in the church like Miss Sanger.
Yeah, Miss Sanger. Even Henry Craig. He may not always understand, but he prays.
You'll do it, sir. Keep right on until you got your 5 houses up here and room for 2,000 orphans. You have your 5,000 pounds. More will come in. Slowly, maybe, but it will come. It may take years, but don't get discouraged, Mr. Mueller.
Thank you, Jim. Tomorrow I think of those words.
Tomorrow?
With an agent, I have an appointment to talk about buying some land for building. Yeah, Jim, there's one difference between your trust and mine. Mine cannot wait around for years. The 5,000 I have now. And the other 5,000 I expect to come any day.
Oh, I am sorry, Mr. Mueller. It does seem as if every time you do business with Archibald and Rumson Limited, there are difficulties.
What's it wrong? More dead men?
Do wish you wouldn't take it out on Archibald and Rumson, Mr. Mueller. It's simply not our fault that the property you want is unavailable.
I must have it. Had my eyes on it for years. It's just right.
I'm sorry, sir. It's impossible.
Who wants it? It isn't valuable. Such mud in the spring. With a little bit of coaxing, it would be underwater.
Yes, that's just it.
Well?
Mr. Mueller, to get this property, you'd have to contend with 3 persons.
3?
I'm afraid so.
Who?
First, a tenant.
There's a tenant?
Never around, I know, but nevertheless, there is a tenant. In fact, he has the land leased until 67, 2 more years.
That's all? That's not quite like 100. Give me his name. I'll talk to him. Show him I must have the land, or there's no new orphanage.
Well, you might come to some agreement, but...
But what? Who is the second?
The second is the owner.
So?
So, he likes money.
Yeah?
Even if you do get rid of the tenant, Mr. Mueller, the owner has set his purchase price at £7,000.
7,000?
That's 2,000 more than you said you can pay.
Yeah.
You see? Difficulty on all sides. I think you'd better forget this idea of another building up there in the down, Mr. Mueller.
I don't. If it is 7,000, then God will give me 7,000. Now, who's the third?
The third. Oh, yes, Mr. Mueller. The third person, or persons, standing between you and that land is someone with whom you cannot argue.
We'll see.
And someone considered by many as powerful as the Almighty himself.
Who's this?
The House of Parliament.
What did you say?
You see, Mr. Mueller, the Bristol Waterworks has its eye on that land. It believes it could very easily be turned into a city reservoir.
But Parliament...
The Bristol Waterworks has already started negotiations in London.
What negotiations?
To have Parliament pass an act that automatically sets aside this particular plot of land for city use permanently.
And so we conclude Chapter 23 of To Ask No Man, the story of George Mueller's incredible adventure with God. This is another in the series Stories of Great Christians, which come to you transcribed from the Moody Bible Institute of Chicago.